Grab your cup of coffee. Sit down for a story. Let's all go exploring. Making it after 40. Making it after 40. Making it after 40.
Hello, friends. Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Making It After 40. I am your host, Lisa Rodriguez. I am an actor and writer who is still trying to make it after the age of 40. On this show, we explore what it means to be an artist trying to make it as a middle-aged person. I couldn't be more excited about today's guest, Ithamar Enriquez. You probably know Ithamar as Commercial Man from Wanda Vision on Disney+. But Ithamar's credits are extensive and include Stumptown, A Series of Unfortunate Events, Drama Club, and so much more. I know Ithamar from his amazing show, Jetso and Ithamar at Second City Hollywood. Ithamar is a Second City trained actor and improviser who has made an extensive career out of his incredible character work. He makes unique choices, is interesting to watch, and has incredible comedic timing. It was such a delight to get to chat with him about his career and how it's evolved. I hope you all get something out of it. So, enjoy the show. I am so excited to share our first sponsor, Rustic Winds. Based out of San Diego County, Rustic Winds is a family-owned and operated small business that produces handmade artisan soy candles and bath and body products. Rustic Winds uses IFRA-regulated and certified fragrances, and their products are palm-free, vegan, and made from organic oils. I love Rustic Winds products. Their custom blends of scents are incredibly delicious, and they are free of phthalates, sulfates, and parabens. It really doesn't get better than that. I personally have been trying to cut back on plastics, so I ditched my shower gel in that plastic bottle and switched to using their cold-processed bar soaps. My personal favorites are Birthday Cake and Honeysuckle Jasmine. If you're looking to support small business for your holiday gifts, or maybe you're looking to change things up with your regular body care routine, please check out Rustic Winds on their website at www.rusticwinds.com or check them out on Instagram using their handle @RusticWinds. For my listeners, they're offering new customers 15% off. Use code MAKINGIT, MAKINGIT. Check them out today. Okay, so today on the show, I have Ithamar Enriquez. Hi, Ithamar.
Hi, Lisa. How's it going?
Hi. Good. Thank you so much for coming on. Ithamar is world famous for his commercials, which then became really meta when he played the commercial man on Wanda Vision. Ithamar, I became familiar with Ithamar's work at Second City Hollywood. He did the show called Jetso and Ithamar. And the big joke was that your character, which is you, was world famous for your commercials and whatnot, and had a rather large ego, which was
just slightly exaggerated from my actual self.
Yes.
Slightly.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of my favorite shows at Second City. And my husband is a structural engineer. He did not frequent improv stuff. And so when I started going to Second City, he came to all my shows, and I needed to go see shows as a student. And I told him, I said, I keep hearing great things about this Jetso and Ithamar. Let's just go. So we went on a Saturday night and made a date of it. And he fell in love with all you guys. He even told me, I was like, oh, I'm interviewing Ithamar tonight. He was like, you are? Tell him that I love him.
That's very nice.
And he did tell me, he's like, you got to get Chad on next.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have fans in this house.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, I know a little bit about you just because I listened to you on the Second City podcast, Second Citizens. And I was really impressed with what you had to say. And of course I'm familiar with your wife and her work. And I can't wait to have her on the podcast too, because she has an amazing show that I know she'll have a lot of really good things to say and to share with the audience. But I usually like to start off the podcast with people kind of giving us a little bit of their background and how you got to where you are now. I mean, you've been I call let me backtrack a little. So the show is called Making It After 40, and it's just basically about being an artist after you turn 40. And some people are second act actors, some people have been going at it a long time and they work consistently, but they're
Mhm.
not Brad Pitt, so they're not world famous.
Right.
And
Right.
I think you've been working pretty consistently since 2009, which is awesome. From what
Yeah,
I could tell.
it's been yeah. I'm very lucky in that sense. Yeah, to just give you a really quick background, I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas,
Mhm.
just a Texas border town, and uh, great place to grow up. Loved growing up there, and then went to school at Arizona State for music theater. Thought that I was gonna, end up doing musicals after that, but then ended up doing improv as like an extracurricular thing, and that just completely changed everything. So that
Yeah.
then led me to Chicago, where I worked at the Second City for their touring company, their theater in Vegas, the ETC theater, and then their main stage. So I worked there, I think between 2003 and 2008. Yeah. And then
Mhm.
2008 is when I moved to Los Angeles. So I'm very lucky in that my last, the last time I had to have a non acting job was when I got Second City Vegas. So that was
Oh, wow.
2003, I believe. So yeah, I'm glad you have this podcast because I feel like for our family and friends who don't know the biz, they're
Yeah.
like, yeah, if you're not Brad Pitt, you're not successful. And it's like, no, there's
Yeah.
so much more than just Brad Pitt. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
is a hard industry. Like it is a difficult
Very.
industry. I There's this lovely story. I'm going to just go on a little bit of a
Yeah.
what's the word I'm looking for? This is why I do shows where
Tangent.
I don't speak. Thank you. Uh, Go on a tangent. There's this great lovely story about the guy on Seinfeld who was the no soup for you, like that actor.
Oh,
He
okay.
then he then became like he kind of used that character to be on Cameo and to make these appearances at like Comic-Con or whatever. And he
Mhm.
wrote a letter to Jerry Seinfeld being like, look at this 30 years later and I'm still able to make money off of this character. And Jerry Seinfeld
Yeah.
sent him a very lovely letter in the back just saying like the fact that anyone can make any money in this industry is such an amazing miracle. Like
Yeah.
he was so happy for him and he was like, regardless of what level, I'm doing quotes for those who
Yeah.
can't see,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whatever level you are in this industry, which is also just kind of like I don't even think that's even a thing. But that if you can make any sort of money doing this, it is you have hit a home run. I mean, that
Yeah.
is success. It's like it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it is it has such a high they'll say failure rate, but it's like I don't know. I mean, I've heard from so many people, they say, like, just if you get an audition
Mm-hmm.
alone, that's a win, you
Yep.
know?
Yep.
If you get a call back, I mean, there you go. You're going somewhere.
And
Eventually,
even
it's a
and
numbers
even
game.
yeah, and even if you don't book it, but that same office calls you back again for something
Yeah.
else, that's already a win because then they want you
Yeah.
for something. They want you for something.
Yeah, I just had that experience this last week. I
Oh,
was
good.
so excited. And like that's my big win. I'm still working on getting any kind of like legit credits. I'm still trying to
Mm-hmm.
get my co-star credits.
Mm-hmm.
And this office called me back again for the same show and I was like, "Oh my gosh, they like me."
That's amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So I figured it'll happen eventually.
Of
Um
course. Yeah.
so what prompted your decision to go ahead and make that jump and come out in 2009 to LA?
I think at that point I had basically done what I wanted to do in Chicago. Like I had
Yeah.
moved to Chicago specifically to hopefully work at Second City, and at that time I worked at every possible performing gig I could. At the
Mhm.
time, there was really only like the two stages in Chicago. There was the one in Vegas, and I did them. So after my third main stage show, I was like, okay, I think. Oh, and I had already started to do a handful of on camera stuff that shot
Yeah.
in Chicago. And I was like, well, this is fun. I like this. I'm still new at it, and also a lot of my friends had already moved out here to LA. So a lot of my
Yeah.
Chicago friends. So that made it so much easier to just be like, okay, I'm gonna make the move.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I did. And as I said before, grew up in El Paso, went to school in Phoenix, so the weather alone compared to Chicago out here is like what I'm used to and what I love. So
Yeah.
it was just one of those things where I just woke up one day and I was like, okay, I think that's it. And I also wanted to leave Second City when I was still enjoying it, and I was still very
Yeah.
much enjoying it when I
Yeah.
left. I didn't want to get bitter about it and, leave on a bad note. So there was part of me was like, I probably could have done one more show, but that's usually the feeling when you're like, all right, maybe it's time to move on.
That was probably a really good decision. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
far,
Leave on a high note. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And how did your family feel about you pursuing acting? Was there a pressure or confusion?
I have to say, my parents have never questioned it.
That's awesome.
They never questioned it. They just, I could tell that they didn't know how to, what's the word? Like, they didn't necessarily, I could tell they didn't know what kind of advice they could give because I'm the only performer in my family. Like, it just kind of came out of nowhere that I ended up doing this. My niece is now a very talented painter there in Phoenix, but when I was growing up, I was the only kind of creative, or at least who wanted to pursue something creative in my family. So I think that they were excited for me, but at the same time, they're like, I mean, yeah, go for it. We don't know what to tell you because we don't, that's uncharted territory for us. Like, we have no idea, but by all means, like, go do it. So yeah, I have to say that they never, ever, ever questioned it, or I never felt any pressure about having to pursue anything else.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think that really helps for artists to kind of like be willing to take that leap when they know that their family isn't giving them a hard time about it or, questioning them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That makes a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
So when you first came out to LA, what was that like for you in terms of like trying to find representation? It sounds like you already had a built-in community because you had so many friends who had moved out here.
Yeah. I was very lucky. God, I know I keep saying luck, but it's just,
I fell into. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
That's a big part of, they say, of success. I think Will Ferrell says that is like, it's, this much talent, like only so much talent and experience and a whole lot of luck.
Yeah, no, really. So I think what also made the move very easy for me was he's still my manager to this day, one of my managers. He would make frequent trips to Chicago because that's where he was from. And he would just go just to visit his family. And then while he was in town, he was always going to Second City. And so he was familiar with my work at Second City just from his time that he visited Chicago. But he was a manager out here. So when my friend Brian Shortall, who was also represented by our manager, mentioned to him, hey, Ithamar's thinking of moving out to LA, my current manager, Joel, called me and said, I heard you're thinking of moving. You let me know when that happens and I will represent you. So that was like, I mean, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer. Like, I was already moving out here with a manager. So that was huge. So
that is huge.
So that was that. And like I said, like, Brian Shortall was out here, Frank Cady was out here, and they were really good friends from Chicago and a bunch of people. So like right away came in, started guesting on improv shows, and then little by little started building that on-screen resume, commercials, and then some co-stars, and then guest stars, and so on and so forth. But it's kind of been like, it's definitely been moving in a good trajectory. It's taken a lot longer than maybe what I thought when I was in my 20s. But also now that I've been doing this for as long as I have, and what I've seen, I'd rather do how I'm doing it now than if it was like a meteoric rise and then maybe a quick downhill or whatever. And I feel like this trajectory, I'm still kind of just going up, and it's been great. And I've been learning so much on my way doing it as well.
Yeah. Well, a consistent theme that I'm finding with folks that I talk to is that in their 20s, maybe they hadn't quite grown into whatever their casting would be yet. And, so like they either didn't book in their 20s or they would book a few things here and there, and some of it is that they didn't know who they were, like know thy own self type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now that they're in their middle agedness, they're really starting to book. And I find that's, yeah.
I've been 50 since I was 15. Like
Yeah.
I've been 50 and I'm still not even 50, but like that's been my like when I hit 50, that'll be like the age I've been most of my life.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think also coming up with improv and sketch was also a bit of a shock for me was when you do more TV and film stuff, they really only see you as like one type. When you're coming from sketch, you're like, I could play anything.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you're doing an improv show, you can literally play anything. But when you're on camera, no, there's only 3 actors in the world who can, mutate themselves into different things and lose themselves in a character. But everyone else is pretty much like, you're playing your age, everything. So
an essence of you, there's something about you that's still in there. Yeah. Yeah. It's so funny that you say that because when I was watching your reel earlier, that was something that I really noticed is that you have a lot of diversity in your reel in terms of the characters that you play. Like you definitely have your comedy roles are, like really goofy, outlandish, awkward, quirky, like that sort of thing. But then you also have these like doctor or like I think it was like a coroner, that like that type of thing. And there was like one where you're a businessman, who's getting arrested, and it's very it's very, very different. And I was really impressed to see that in your reel because I'm so used to the comedy that I know.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Those I've done a handful of dramas, or it'll be like the comic relief in a drama, which isn't as heavy comedy as in a comedy, but there's like a little bit, like the one you mentioned for Stump Town, which is no longer on the air. That was one where it was like, it's drama funny, so it's not like as big as I can be on Teachers or Lemony Snicket, but it's just a little like a little wink to the comedic side, even though you're in a drama.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you because you do so much stage and so much improv, and obviously that's what you came up from. I'm trying to think what exactly is my question, because I guess I'm wondering, do you find that continuing your stage work helps feed the TV and film, or is it maybe something that you use to keep your sanity? Like if things go dry, like how do they like relate to each other? Because so many people I think will give up the live performances once they start booking, and you certainly haven't done that.
I'm sure it helps with the craft of film acting. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't make that connection. Like I don't know how that is, but I will say that as far as like just the sanity of it, just staying creative, whatever that means, whether that means getting on stage as much as you can, writing every day, posting videos online, whatever that is, that helps because initially that's why we're all doing it. Yes.
Yeah.
Do we want to get rich and famous? Sure. But the kernel of what got us there was because there was something in us as children that loved doing that, loved playing pretend, loved getting that attention, loved being in these worlds where we can be different characters and use our imagination. And I think that's what kind of keeps us alive. I mean, and it's so funny too, because like I'll be on sets sometimes and you can tell when actors have only done film and TV. It's not that they're bad. It's just like there's just a certain level of play that is different than people who have done theater.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny that you say that because I feel like that's been a theme in the class that I'm in right now is play. She keeps reminding us to play and play. And I feel like for me personally, when I'm on stage, I'm down to play. When I'm playing with my friends, it's great. It's hard to keep that when you're doing a self tape or when
Yeah.
you're doing a scene with a reader, or even sometimes if you have a scene partner. It's a little bit easier with a scene partner now, but but keeping that play for TV and film has been a real challenge for me.
Yeah, it's tough. And, it's for the most part, like on comedies, if they want you to improvise, they'll let you know for the audition. I tend to now just so I can give them a little bit of myself, I tend to just give them a button at the end. Like I'll
Yeah.
let the scene end, and then and literally the button is no more than like 5 words. It's not like I'm changing the entire scene. It's not like that button will even ever make it on air. It's just to show them a little bit of like, this is what I can do. And if you need me to play with the words, I can.
Yeah.
But also, I can do it exactly as written. Because that's another thing I found too. Like, I've done projects where they're big comedies and they're these huge ensembles, and right away from the get-go, people just want to improvise. And it's like, well, no, you also have to know when it's right to improvise. Like, sometimes the scripts don't need the improvisation. Like, the scripts are great just as they are. And I feel like sometimes people are rushing to get to that improv part, and it's like, it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it.
Yeah.
Whenever you feel that it is needed, then you can improvise.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes with experience. That's part of the benefit of growing older and,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
having all those reps. And yeah, that's definitely experience.
Yeah, so I always consider Chicago and Second City like my grad school, because I moved out there right after college. And so basically, and I was there until I turned 30. So basically my 20s were all like Chicago and Second City. And for me, it's perfect that that's how it happened. If I were to come straight to LA and start working in my 20s, I would have never have made it. And I probably would have given up, because I wouldn't have had the experience or the confidence to keep going and to take that rejection. You're still kind of fragile in your 20s and you're still learning stuff. So for me, the way it worked out was perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a lot of weight in that, because I think that happens to a lot of people who come to LA in their 20s. I know, like, I came to LA in my 20s right after college, and I just didn't know what I was doing. And so I ended up taking a job in property management, and then that led to a promotion, which led to a promotion. And then next thing you know, I'm in my 30s and I'm like, oh, what happened? I have a baby and a husband and I'm not acting.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. But that's okay, because I think at the end of the day, like, all those experiences inform your work eventually.
Absolutely.
And that's why I have this podcast now, is like, okay, well, that's kind of made me who I am now. And now let's give it another try.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said before, like, you need that outlet. You need that creative outlet. So I'm assuming that's what this podcast is, one of those things for you. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's really fun to be able to do this and
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
talk to all these people. Yeah.
It's for me connecting with people, but it's also connecting people with people.
Yeah.
Because, for so long I've felt like, God, I'm the only like 40-year-old out here trying to make it. And like, I have, at that time I had a brand new baby and I'm struggling and I feel so lame and I'm so embarrassed that I'm still trying to make this work. And, now 3 years later, I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm making the podcast.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm gonna put it out there, because I'm sure
great.
I'm not alone. And I found that I'm not. Yeah.
And I feel like that fuck it attitude is always that, like, fuck it, I'm going to do it, is the best feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's essentially what led me to do my solo show where I don't speak. Like, it was just an idea that I'd had for a long time. And then one year I was just kind of feeling down on, like, bookings weren't really happening that much. And I was kind of getting tired of, like, the industry. I was getting tired of waiting for permission to play. So that's when I said, well, fuck it, I'm going to write and perform this show. And it's been one of my most favorite things that I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I still do it. I mean, I just did the show last week.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it still keeps coming up, and and I will say at this time it was fun because whereas before when I was doing this show, it's a show I do for those of you who don't know. It's called Ithamar's Nothing to Say, and it's a solo show I
Yes.
perform without speaking. But uh, when I was doing it before, I think there was a part of me that's like, well, what can this turn into, and who will come see it, and can it turn into a TV show, blah blah blah, and we went that route, and
Yeah.
we pitched it, and nothing happened, and we pitched it
Mhm.
as a live stand-up special, nothing happened. So this time around when I've been doing it, I'm like, you know what, these are just for me. These are just for me.
Yeah.
I don't care who comes to see it. I don't care these are just to keep in the present moment of those shows. These are just little things for me. I don't know if and when another theater will ask me to do it again, but if and when they do, I'll be more than happy to do it, and it's
Yeah.
just for me. And it's the best feeling in the world to know that it's just for you.
That's okay. I love that you bring that up because this has been something that I've been going through. I do these little shorts that I've been putting on Instagram called Tips with Teresa, and it's this character that I came up with, and she's really awkward, and she kind of makes these videos of life hacks, tips that nobody really needs or asked for.
Yeah.
Like there's one about like how to save bacon fat so you can cook with it. And like she almost like she doesn't smile ever. And she's
Yeah.
just, I don't know. Anyway, I had so much fun doing it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do another round. I'm going to do season 2. And I started out strong and I loved the first 2 videos and I put it out there and I just didn't have the response that I thought. And I got really down about it.
Hmm.
And so I kind of put it on hold. And a lot of my friends were like, we love this. But if you're doing it for the likes, if you're doing it because you want it to go somewhere, just drop it.
Yeah.
Just if you're going to do it for you, do it for you.
Yep.
And so that's something that I've been really wrestling with is like looking at this character. Am I doing it for me or am I doing it for the likes? And so I've decided to put the new videos on hold until I can find the joy that I want to bring to it. Because if I'm not bringing that joy, I don't think it's going to resonate and reach people.
Well, let me ask you this question. When you were making the video, what was more fun for you? Actually making it or going online to see how many likes after it was posted? What was more fulfilling, more fun for you?
Making it like
then
just
there you go.
saying all this random stuff. And then
there
like
you go.
when I was cutting it together, I was like, oh my God, that was so stupid. Why did you say that? That's great. Let's put that in there. Like that was
well,
so
there you
fun.
go. I think you've answered it. So it's more fun to do that than the other thing. So do the one that's fun.
Yeah.
Like just make it. If because like I remember when I originally did the show at Second City Hollywood, there were nights when back then the houses weren't super full and I was like really stressed out about it. I was like, oh, I want a full house. But now that I'm years away from that and I look back at that time, at that run at Second City Hollywood, or like the same thing with the run with Jetso, I never once think about the nights that we didn't have a full house. All I think about are, God, that was such a fun time in my life. That was such a fun time. And literally, I couldn't tell you how many nights we sold out. I couldn't tell you how many nights we only had 5 people in the audience because I don't remember anymore. Because it really is just, that was so fun.
Yeah. And then that fun fed memories with the audience. It's like you said, like, here it is. I mean, it must have been like 2016 or something right. When I saw you guys and it still lives with me, I did. And it's funny that you say that too, because it makes me think about the one time that I got to do one of the little opening acts for Jetso and Ithamar. It was this lip sync thing that I would do at home, like for my cousins or my husband, like probably after we had a few drinks. And I love Cat Stevens, and he has this really silly song. Yeah. I like to live in a wig, man. So I did a whole lip sync dance to that song. And my Second City friends came and they watched it and they were like, oh my God, I've never seen you do that before. But that's what I love. Like that was something that lit me up. And it just makes me think like, that was one night, one performance. And I think I need to hold on to those are the things, like you said, those are the memories that I need to hold on
Yeah,
to. I think that's what's missing,
sure.
as like I try to continue to be an artist while taking care of children, while working a day job, while paying the bills, whatever.
Sure. No, I mean it's tough. It's like we said at the start of this podcast, it's a very difficult industry, but the freedom we do have as performers is that we can tap into that joy whenever we want, however we want. Meaning
Mhm.
it doesn't always have to be, you know, okay, I want to feel joy, so that means I have to book a date at the theater, write a show. Like it doesn't mean all
Yeah.
that work. It could literally be, okay, I have 2 hours to myself. I'm gonna sit and write, or I'm just gonna put it in selfie mode, press record, and I'm just gonna start improvising a character monologue. Like
Yeah.
whatever that is, it's we need to make sure that that muscle keeps going because it
Yeah.
is a muscle. It is a muscle, and also because it brings us joy. I mean,
Yeah.
I have probably laughed more like by myself thinking of things than I have with any other person who I'm close to in my life, and it's just you gotta be your biggest fan and your best audience.
My husband says that I am the funniest person I know, because I do that all the time. I'll make a dumb joke, or I'll
Yeah,
do something and I crack myself up.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go.
I think that is so important. I that is something that I really have been struggling with, is maintaining that joy. And it's something that you do really well in terms of just like putting it on selfie mode and doing some bit. You post like so many really interesting little bits that you put on Instagram, and they seem so flawless. Is it stuff that just comes to you, or do you plan it out, or?
It depends. Like, yeah, it'll be. I'm not the type that I can just sit in front of a blank computer like every day for 3 hours and just. It's got to be like, um, an idea that's been sort of like percolating in my head, or sometimes it'll just be like one night. I had COVID earlier this year, so I was staying quarantined
Yeah.
in the house, and I basically binge watch all of The Bear on Hulu.
Oh
Or
yeah.
it's FX, but it's on Hulu. So
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
I watched the show and loved it, and then all of a sudden
Uh-huh.
was just like, "Ooh, I want to do something like with that energy of the bear." And then I was like, "Well, but what do I know about working in a restaurant? I've never worked in a restaurant." And then I was like, "Well, what if the bear was like self-taping?" So I just
Yeah.
basically it took 2 hours, maybe at the most, if even 2 hours, to just
Yeah.
basically shoot myself as all the characters in a self-taping scenario with that energy of the bear, and it was super fun to do. And I think what's also so nice about being able to post this stuff is, whereas before it'd be like, no one's gonna get it. How many like self tape? Who knows about self taping? But I find that the more specific you get about an idea, the more
Mm-hmm.
universal it becomes, because then
Right.
people can apply it to anything else, And also
Yeah.
maybe like I made fun of myself in that about like,
Mm-hmm.
why aren't I verified yet? Like Wanda Vision. Oh, but that was over 2 years ago. Like there's just like some fun self-deprecating stuff there too. But yeah, I think it's just, yeah, it's either when the inspiration strikes, you just do it. And again, it's like, because most of the time that I make these things, I don't even know if I'm going to post them. If I'm being honest, like I don't know if I'm
Yeah.
going to post them. After I watch, there's been things where I've watched, I was like, okay, that was fun. But when I watch it, it's not as funny as I thought. And that's okay. That was a fun 45
Mm-hmm.
minutes of my life, but I don't need to post it. And I just move on. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, this is pretty funny. I will post it. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But that's part of like creating content, or being creative, is like, right, you're going to make stuff that doesn't work. That's part of it, is like you have to have those failures to like know how to make it better next time. Or
absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. That's really interesting. So cuz you do so much on Instagram, how do you feel about like keeping up with all of that? Like, do you ever feel like I can't do TikTok, I'm too old, or
I think I've just now embraced it. I think that because I actually do have a TikTok, I don't do as
yeah.
many TikToks. I think I started it at the height of the pandemic in 2020, because it's that thing where it's like I have to stay creative.
Yeah.
So I started doing some of parts of my show on TikTok, and it was really fun. I think now, whereas before I was like, oh man, what am I doing in this young person's game? Now I
Uh-huh.
just embrace it and I make it part of the joke. Like, I'm like, yeah, like I'm a guy in his mid 40s on TikTok. Okay, so this is my version of what a TikTok is. And again, I don't care about like I'm not looking to get sponsored content
Yeah.
or to
Yeah.
become an influencer. I'm just like, and on TikTok I mean, compared to other people on TikTok, my views are like very, very minimal
Yeah.
compared to like, but I don't care. Like, I'm just like, it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun.
I think that is again is like one of the beauties of being an older artist now or an older actor is like you really stop caring about
Yeah.
like what people are thinking of you, unless you're saying something like that's going to be horrible and people are going to cancel you. But I mean,
Right.
hopefully you don't say those things.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
in general, it's just like I don't care if I'm going to make a fool of myself. I was, with that Tips with Teresa character, I was talking to my 12-year-old and I was like, oh, you know what I think I might do? I think I might do tips with weightlifting. And I'm going to get bike shorts and like a thong leotard. And he was like, Mom, he's like, that's not going to look good. And I'm like, that's the point because it's not going to look good on me.
Right. Right.
I think you just kind of get to that age where you don't really care anymore.
Right. Right. And it really, it's beautiful to feel that, but then it's also like, part of me is like, oh, like what I would have killed to have had this attitude in my 20s, like
Yeah.
to have had that. But again, there's a reason why it happens as it does.
Yeah.
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 And I'm also, now it's fun because I'm also finding now more interests beyond acting and how I can marry the two in other things. Like I'm currently in the middle of taking classes to be certified to teach and guide meditation. And what I'm loving about it is as I'm starting to guide meditations, that's part of our class curriculum. Like it's fun to find what I know about acting and writing to create these meditations for people
Yeah.
that are unique and maybe even a little funny. That world can use a little bit more of a sense of humor as well. So like bringing my sense of humor into that. So it's just also fun to be like, what else is out there?
I agree with that. And I find that a lot of the stuff that you learn in acting classes can be applied in so many different ways. I recently went back to working full time as an assistant property manager. And one of the things that I try to take with me is I have a VO coach who would say like don't approach the script as an us and them, don't approach the client as an us and them. It's we are working together. We have this is a partnership, because when you put a divide, that puts up blocks. And so I try to think about that with my clients too, with my tenants, is how can I partner with my tenants? How can I partner with my boss? And I think, I don't know, it's amazing how you wouldn't think that any of this applies, but so much of it applies. And then also, even when you have to call a tenant about something that's not fun to discuss, you get to kind of put on a little bit of that charm and I'm going to listen to you. And because you've been trained so well to listen, you can hear what they need and you can find a way to give them what they need without letting go of what you have to fulfill and get them to pay for it or whatever. Yeah.
Definitely.
It's really interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to jump back into the Wanda Vision stuff. I'm curious how that was for you. Cause you did talk about how like, you have family who's like, oh, if you're not a celebrity, then like, are you even working? Have you even made it?
Right. Yeah.
So I'm sure the WandaVision thing was a big change, becoming part of the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great project to be a part of. It was super fun, and everyone who was a part of it was very nice and creative, and it was very exciting because it was the first TV show, like the first sort of Marvel TV show. It was going to be the first Marvel thing in years. We were shooting it like at the height of the pandemic in 2020, where there was still no vaccine, because there was still like the mysterious how do we do this? What do you do? And and then also besides all that, among the Marvel projects, it's like the most unique and the most different from anything else, to my knowledge. So it was a bit of a mystery because like they kept us pretty separate. I don't know if this was by design, but like we shot over the span of 6 weeks, but uh, they only gave us our parts of the script, so we didn't
Yeah.
see. They kind of told us what the commercials were going to do, but they didn't. We didn't necessarily know that there were going to be all these like Easter eggs in the commercials, so that
Oh.
when the show came out and all of a sudden I'm getting tagged in all these like theories, I'm like, wait, what? What's happening? Who am I now? I'm who? Like, people think I'm whose parents? Like, what is happening? So that's when I really learned, like, oh, this is why they call it a universe. Like, it is.
Yeah.
And people are trying to and finding those points to connect.
Oh yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that was really fun for me after the show came out because I was just along for the ride. I was like, I went in and did my job, and now this is fun. Like, you could ask me about any theories you have, but just so you know, they don't tell us shit. So like I'm as clueless as you as to where this is going to lead.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so fun. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I know. I have a lot of family who's like super into Wanda Vision, and
Yeah.
I was like, I know that guy, kind of. I've seen him on stage. He's in like the community that I'm a part of, but
Yeah.
yeah. That's really neat. I mean, what a fun little ride that must have been.
It was great. And then it was fun while we were shooting it, and then just to see the reaction it got from everyone was just like, oh my, I had no idea. Like, I had no idea the fandom of MCU until I did that show.
Do you get to go to any of like the Comic-Con stuff?
No. I think
Okay.
that I once talked to an agent about it who books that, and I named my my resume. They're like, oh yeah, we know that show. Oh wow, and that one too. Yeah, that would work great on the road. And then I never heard back from them. So I'm like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe
All
next
right.
time. Whatever. You never know in this industry.
Yeah. Eventually you'll get to have your soup Nazi moment.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Like right to Kevin Feige.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what is it that you look forward to as you continue to age in this industry and continue to grow your career from here?
I think I look forward to having the confidence to play on set because, as you mentioned before, I'm definitely not like a household name, but definitely in the last 2 years, every set I come onto, people know that I've been working. Like, it's not like I'm this newcomer.
Yeah.
People know either they've seen my reel or they just know me from whatever. So, and with that comes, like, for me at least, a confidence of like, okay, I can play a little bit more. I don't have to be the super desperate young actor anymore. And that's what's really fun, is that now it feels like, I'm going to say this, but it's not what I mean. It feels like work, not in a bad sense, but it just feels like, okay, this is my job. I show up, I do a good job, we have a good time, and then I go home and live my life. And I think there's some freedom to that, to rather than like, oh my God, this is the only thing I'm going to do and it's the last thing. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I do feel like that, like, what's the next job? Right. But once I'm on set, there's a confidence there that I didn't have in my 20s and 30s that is really feels really nice.
That's really interesting. That's really cool, because it's like you basically you have respect. People know your work well enough that they respect what you do, and you have a reputation, and that's a big deal. It's a good reputation.
Yeah, no, it feels great. It's nice.
Yeah, that's really great. What tips would you have for someone who's coming up into this industry, whether they're a young person or maybe they're making a career change?
I would say what I said before, and just stay creative.
Yeah.
Whatever that means to you. And that can literally mean crocheting, that can mean painting, writing, puppetry, magic, whatever that is, dancing. Just stay creative.
Yeah. Even Celeste Pecus, she just started doing pottery. I mean, she's been painting for quite some time, but now she's starting do pottery. She's been posting about that. I think that,
Yeah. I love Celeste.
that's really,
Yeah.
she's so great.
Yeah.
She's so fun.
She is.
And then my last question that I always ask people is, what does making it mean to you? And maybe it's something different now than it was when you were younger, but like, what does success look like to you?
I think success looks like just being happy with your current self, regardless of where you're at work-wise.
Mm-hmm.
Just being happy, confident, and satisfied with what you're putting out to the world. And that doesn't necessarily always mean your job. It can be your job. It could also be your family, your friends, your spouses, your significant other, your children, your neighbors, whatever that is. Just waking up each day and going to sleep that night with a smile on your face, knowing that it was a good day and that, you know, that you were happy with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah.
This has been so awesome. And
yeah. Thank you. It was great.
I hope that I hope that this continues to help people realize that the journeyman actor, they're out there. They're working their butt off, auditioning. I
gotta say, like I've had the opportunity of working with some really wonderful people and some names that are like really big. And don't get me wrong, I'm always excited to work with those people, but I'm always even more excited to work with the character actors that I know their name and I've seen them on a million things, but they're not household names. Those are the ones that I'm like, I want to pick your brain.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this person has Oscars. Great. I want to talk to you, this character actor I've seen on a million things. Like, that's the person I want to talk to. That to me is a more exciting career.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of my favorites is Stephen Root, because he's just like, I mean, he's much more like, I don't know if I would say he's a household name, but he's a household face. You know him when you see him. Yep. And I don't know that the average person would know his name, but he's one of those character actors that has an awesome career.
Yep.
Has so many interesting characters, and he's so good at what he does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly one right there. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
I want the Stephen Root career.
Absolutely.
And it might be 50 before I get, before I really start booking work, but that's okay. I'll take it.
I mean, he's a
so
perfect
I'll have
example.
The end down career then.
Yeah, I mean, he's a perfect example of someone who, like, you kind of just know him as an older guy. Like, even in Office Space, like, he was already, like, I'm assuming he was in his 40s or 50. I don't know how old he is. But, I mean, he's been doing it for a while, too. Or like Bryan Cranston. I mean, now Bryan Cranston's a major star, but like, I don't think he got Malcolm in the Middle till he was like in his mid to late 40s.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, it wasn't until he was in his 40s that he got Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah,
and then things just took off for him.
Yeah,
there's another guest that I interviewed earlier this week who came out to Hollywood in his 20s. Called it quits. He needed a break. He just knew he was going to become bitter and he didn't want that. So he went on, worked a whole job, moved to Atlanta, working for the CDC. And then in 2013, he was like, well, I'm going to retire in 4 years. Maybe I'll start taking some classes. And he realized, oh, wait, Hollywood's come to me now. And so now and that was like at 53, he started acting again. He's now in his 60s and he has so many credits. It's just fantastic. Like sometimes it's right place, right time.
Yep.
Hitting it, and he's becoming a character actor. So
that's fantastic.
Out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so many of us out there working our butts off, and
that's right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna let you go then.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And tell Amy I say hello. I'm gonna be reaching out to her to schedule her interview next.
I will. I'll let her know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Bye, Ithamar.
Bye, Lisa.
Thank you all for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to follow Ithamar on Instagram at Ithamar Enriquez. It's honestly such a great follow. He's always posting funny videos and random little sketches. So check it out. Please, if you're enjoying the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. And share the show on Instagram. Get the word out with your friends. Word of mouth is such a great resource to spread the word of the show. Be sure to follow the show on Instagram at Making It After 40, the number 40, and to catch up on what I'm doing when I'm not podcasting, check out my Instagram at Lisa Rodriguez. Thank you for listening, friends, and have an excellent week.